Hi everyone, it's a gorgeous day and we're inside, but we're going to get right to it and talking about personalized learning because I feel like it's one of the most misunderstood concepts in education right now. I know that every time we write about it at the Hechinger report, there are people who get angry about it, and so I feel like it's so important to understand what it is, how it works, and what it is not. And I'm really happy that we have three different perspectives here. We've got the superintendent of a large school district, a sixth grade teacher, and a former teacher who is now an advocate for personalized learning. So I'm going to start with the teacher, sixth grade teacher. What is personalized learning? What does it look like in your classroom? What are your kids doing?
Personalized learning to me is students in my classroom being able to not only facilitate their own learning, but being able to facilitate the learning of their peers as well.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is like it's success on their own terms. They engage and work on Summit, which is a platform that allows me to upload work for them.
So that's a technical platform, correct?
Right, it's a technical platform that allows me to upload work for them to engage in. They go through different checkpoints
on the
computer before they have to turn in a final product. And those checkpoints are just to make sure that they understand every piece of the concept that they need in order to engage in a full final product. They also take focus areas online, which are quizzes, and those quizzes give students direct feedback. So just like teachers are using data to drive instruction, students are also doing that same thing. Where they're able to see like, oh, I got a 2 out of 5 on understanding ratio tables, so this is what I need help on. And then it also allows them to see different peers within the classroom who can help facilitate that learning for them in that particular concept.
What do you like about it?
I like that it allows teachers to be more facilitators of their learning, but it also allows students to set their own goals. Like they say, I want to 4 on this project and this is exactly what I need to do. By utilizing that rubric. So it doesn't lead me as the teacher as setting like goals for my students. They are engaging in that work and they're empowered to do so. And they feel really good about themselves when they've accomplished something that they've went and set for themselves.
Great. And Matt, it's not at all like that in your district, because I edited a piece we wrote last year that appeared in the Atlantic about an entire transformation of your district, Vista, which is outside of San Diego. You were pretty much a traditional system, and then you received a $10 million XQ grant from the Emerson Collective, which, full disclosure, is also a majority owner of the Atlantic. And that totally changed the way you're doing education from top to bottom, and this is the first year, you just completed the first year, you're close to it.
Almost complete, right.
Tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Well, the XQ grant applies to our largest school in our school district. We have 30 schools, so it applies to Vista High School. And one of the things that we wanted to do as a district is go full in. And we wanted to start with our largest school. And if we can transform a traditional high school and that learning pathway for students, we believe we can transform all the schools in our district. And so the way we explain personal learning is that in simple terms, typically high school students would come to school and the story would be given to them. So their learning story would be given to them by teachers. And then they would receive that story, and then upon graduation, some people would really buy into that story and go to college and others wouldn't. So the way we approach it is that we create the space for students to own their story, and that the teacher, as Tequilla pointed out, shifts over into the passenger side of the vehicle and is that active support and guide as they go along, and the students kind of take control of their learning and drive their instruction. A couple examples of that at a high school level would be that we've taken the traditional high school schedule, which tends to be cut up in a bunch of 45-minute periods, and we've blocked 4 of them. And those 4 block periods are the 4 core subject areas. And those teachers work together multidisciplinary with the students, so the students can go back and forth and work on projects that are interdisciplinary in nature, so that they can actually choose the project they work on, choose the other students that they work with to complete that project, and follow through on that project as they set their own goals, and the teacher activates that learning and supports them as they move along.
This is not just a technological program. As I recall from editing the piece, you've also dramatically changed the spaces, the furniture,
completely
the way
transformed.
The learning.
Yeah, we actually took the library and gutted the library completely. This is a large high school, so a very big library, and now it's called the Learning Commons, and it's actually a flexible learning space for students as they work on their multidisciplinary projects.
And Chris, you work at a nonprofit that's just today received some pretty seismic news about your ability to transform personalized learning in Chicago, which may be somewhat controversial. But first, tell us a little bit about that and how it's going to work and what you intend to do with this. I have to call it a windfall.
Yeah, no, fantastic to get some funding to Chicago Public Schools and our partnership there. What it looks like is step one is community-led transformation.
What does that mean?
So speaking from my own personal experience, prior I did some work in New Orleans, and you had a lot of people come in with existing school models and they didn't respect the local community. And we were talking about this prior too. I mean, schools around Chicago, public, private, charter, wherever you're at, suburban, each community is different, those students are different, and so if you're gonna personalize or design for those students, that needs to be led by the community because they know their kids 1,000 times better than I do. So that's part of the approach of one, it'll be kind of a application-based, schools can join into cohorts, intentionally all types of schools, all types of regions. There's a big equity frame for it.
Well, describe what happened today, what you got and what you're going to do with it. And it's not necessarily led by the community. It's going to be led by an outside. You've got huge amounts of money from a organization that supports personalized learning. Yes, the
Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative, a $14 million grant to Chicago Public Schools and LEAP. And again, that's to support our work.
What is LEAP?
So LEAP Innovations, we're a nonprofit. I'd say we're a catalyst to support that change. And knowing that change of personalized learning and designing for the needs of a student is led by the community. It's also done over time. And so the bulk of it will go towards teacher training. So most of the school partnerships we work with is 1.5 to 2.5 years, looking at a 5-year timeline, because you don't change this overnight. You really dive into helping the teachers and everyone understand their kids and their whole child needs. So this isn't just academics, this is health, this is wellness, this is social emotional. I would add part of the Chan-Zuckerberg Initiative. Priscilla Chan is a pediatrician, so she comes very, very strong of whole child, Maslow's hierarchy. If I want a kid to be successful in school, I need to really know them. And so starting there and then moving through what are the forms and ways in which this looks like and plays out in school. There also is a research side to this, so bringing in the learning science. I don't know if Todd Rose mentioned this, but learning science and evidence-based practices are key to all of this because we don't want to just be like, hey, it feels good. We need to know if it's working for each child.
Do you think the teachers are going to be enthusiastic about this? They've had quite a lot of issues in Chicago, and I hear a lot from teachers that they're very afraid that personalized learning is a way of replacing them ultimately with technology. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I think there's zero truth to that, but I feel the same pain point. The simple line is you can't buy personalized learning. And if people come in thinking you can buy personalized learning by buying furniture, buying a technology, then you've missed the entire conversation. The whole goal here is a paradigm shift to caring about that child in front of you. I think a panelist said earlier, seeing that child and just starting there. Technology might or might not even be a part of that. So
you feel like this is very misunderstood?
It's incredibly misunderstood. I mean, this is agency, this is student-led conferences, this is kids knowing themselves and their culture so they can bring their whole self to school and not push that down. At the same time, the system and the teachers are understanding them and building the support so they can be successful.
Okay, Tequilla, I'm a 6th grade parent, say. I walk into your classroom for parent-teacher conference, and you start talking to me about personalized learning. What is my kid learning? I don't understand. What are you doing? Tell me.
So at the beginning of each year, we bring parents in to discuss the summit platform and everything they'll be engaging in. My 6th grade students, this was actually their first year starting summit. And so for a lot of parents, it was very difficult for them.
Were they against it?
No, they weren't. Just
because it gives
that connection. Parents are able to check their children's progress in class on the go. Like I can pull up and I can see that, oh, she hasn't completed these assignments. I see that Ms. Thomas has gave her feedback, so what's going on? So it's an open line of communication, not only for me and the students, but myself, the students, and the parents as well. And just like you said, it's about educating the whole child. Each child starts the day with mentorship, and so you have a direct person that you have contact with. So any confusion, we're already there to mitigate that for not only parents, but students as well. And so they do that goal setting there with me in the morning, and the parents are able to contact me or email me, however it works. And we're fortunate enough where we have 1-to-1 for our middle school, so our kids actually take those tablets home with them as well. And so honestly, students are the best teachers, so they've been teaching their parents more about the platform than I can ever do.
Do you think the parents like it?
I think so. I think it makes it a little bit easier for them, especially parents who work and can't make it to all the meetings or can't always stop what they're doing to answer the phone. They're able to just be able to check that and have that right there in front of them. And then the kid being able to bring it home is just like the icing on top of the cake.
Okay, so Matt, theoretically, I'm a parent who grew up in Vista, San Diego. I went to the public schools, they were fine for me. What on earth are you doing with this furniture all over the place and personalized learning, and what is this stuff my kid is bringing home, and why are you doing this?
Well, one of the reasons we're doing it is because before we launched the Personalized Learning Initiative, we actually met with the parents at Vista High and across the entire school district. And interestingly, one of the genesis of moving down this pathway of personal learning is that the parents were complaining. Interestingly, they were complaining that their students who were at or above grade level weren't being challenged enough. And so we were doing a really good job trying to close that achievement gap for students below, but we weren't challenging students at or above. And so they were actually asking for it. And so we designed the whole learning challenge and actually wrote the XQ grant with parents and students. And so interestingly, they're the ones that are driving this conversation. But what we help to make it real, because I think what you're asking is how do you make it real for a parent who didn't experience it? We have monthly opportunities for parents to come in, and it's quite well attended during the day and in the evening for parents who work, and they actually engage in an activity with their student to see some of the activities that they're doing. And I'll give you one example. We brought, one of the themes today is equity and access, and so a really important element of the personal learning pathway for us is this idea of wellness. And how do we help students develop the essential skills, some people call them soft skills, the interpersonal communicative skills that they need. And so we have wellness teachers. And these are certificated teachers in each of the content areas that work with groups of students through restorative practices and other wellness techniques. So they're learning how to manage their learning. Because when you throw a high school kid all the keys to the driving of their own learning, and they don't have the interpersonal skills to be able to manage that, they're not going to be successful. So actually, the parents really love those sessions when we have these wellness sessions with the parents and students together, so they can see how they're beginning to navigate their own learning pathway.
Got it. So Chris, tell us a little bit about what you're actually going to be doing to drive this change in Chicago, and what obstacles are you anticipating? What kind of opposition, what kind of education are you going to have to give both the teachers, the parents, and the communities that you're going to be working with?
Great question. One, I mean, to date, we've worked with about 100 schools around the city, incredible diversity part to it, and so we can quickly show personalized learning looks different in every setting, as it should. Also, it's led by the teachers. So in all of this work, it's a core teaching team of 4 to 8 teachers, principal leadership, students and parents involved with that. And there's a part of it elevating the profession, which I think sometimes gets missed in the conversation, and that's where the technology replacing stuff comes in. We try and drive as much of teachers are at the table and decision makers, because there's a difference between an advisory panel and a decision maker that's authentic power. And really getting them at the table is part of that design and what that looks like. And so moving that through, it's a cohort model, so also a lot of cross collaboration around the city. And then there is a large research side to this to really figure out what works, because we got to learn over time and get smarter over time, so that way good practices that are evidence-based can kind of expand. At the same time, as you know, on kind of the cutting edge of innovation, there's things people will try that won't work, and we got to be honest about that. So this isn't just a feel-good type of thing. The last thing I would say is there's new metrics to look at. So it's not just test scores. It's social emotional. We've seen dramatic drops in discipline. We had one school that had 120-something suspensions. The next year they were under 10. Because again, it was a simple paradigm shift to, rather than kicking my kids out of the system or telling them to come in and shut up and listen, let me seek to understand. And how can I support you in education? And that simple shift can have such a cultural domino in a positive way to the kids and how they see themselves, how teacher treat them, all these parts to it. So it's complex, but it's really exciting because we're 4 years into it already prior to this grant, and seen just some incredible stories of kids being advocates for themselves and great changes in attendance and behavior and academics.
And Tequilla, you've been a teacher for 3 years. The first year you did not do personalized learning, the last 2 you had. Can you compare the experiences and also the experience of the second year of personalized learning to the first, when you've kind of maybe made some mistakes and learned from them?
I always think of it in a way of like imagining that a student can be a teacher in a classroom, and I don't only hold that hat. And I think that the personalized learning experience has given my students more voice than I could have possibly given them before that experience. My students have learned to advocate for themselves in the sense of like, hey, I submitted my work 2 hours ago and I'm ready for you to check it because I need feedback because I'm ready for my grade to like change, and I've done this and I can do this. And it gives them those skills that they can transfer not only across content but across life, because they have to learn to become problem solvers, and it's not me at the center. Where before it would be like, oh, Miss Thomas, I don't know how to do this. Like, you're the only way. And now it's like, I have all these other things, and sometimes now I'm just the last resource, where it's like, I figured this out on my own and I've got it. And I think it's just really giving them the tools to help them become successful later on in life. And the fact that like at my school specifically, Truesdell, we're starting that early at 3rd grade. Our 3rd graders are on Summit, and the power of feedback is amazing. It truly empowers younger students to really be reflective, and that's something that you don't see across lots of schools.
Do you feel like they're achieving better academically as a result?
Definitely, because it's more intrinsic motivation. Because, like I said before, it's success on their terms, not mine. And when you put the power in the hands of a student, the outcomes are like imaginable, like you don't even know.
And Matt, you're in a sprawling, more traditional school district. Can you imagine, and you also got $10 million. So can you imagine a typical suburban or urban school district trying to accomplish what you're doing this year without a huge infusion of funds and support?
Oh, it was similar to what LEAP's doing in Chicago. We started this pathway before we won the XQ prize. I mean, XQ has been fantastic, very strong support of what we're doing, and we wouldn't be where we are without the XQ prize. But no, this can be done within a traditional budget. I write the strategic plan for our school district, and we have $250 million. It's just how you choose to use your money, effectively. So I think that it's you can operationalize it in a school district. I think the key is to move slowly and make sure that it's organic. And the phrase that I like to use with all 30 of our schools and our principals and parents that go with those schools is that the agent of change is at the site level. It's not at the district level. If you can get that right, then you can get transformation right, because every school is going to be different, just like every child's different.
Well, what's the goal here? Do you expect to either improve graduation rates, improve college-going rates? What's your thinking behind what you want to get out of this experiment? And I'm going to call it an experiment for now, but it may not,
right.
Because the way things go in education, they come and go.
Right. Well, I think the main thing we want to get out of it is kids that are excited about learning. We want to generate learners. We want, this concept of creating flexible, nimble learners for a society for which we don't even know what the jobs will be 10 years from now. So that's number one. Number two, clearly, we want kids to stay in school. We want our graduation rate to go from 92 to 100. We want our students to graduate high school that have the necessary soft skills to be employable immediately, not just go to college. We want to shift away from an atmosphere where students who are at or above grade level ask the question, what do I have to do to get an A? We want them to say, hey, I really want to work on this project that aligns to the UN Sustainable Development Goals because we're worried about curing hunger. So there's a variety of things that we want, and interestingly, at Vista High, our XQ school, we're moving the needle on it. Of our 30 schools, Vista High had the highest gains in state achievement last year in their assessment.
In the first year of personalized
learning. In the first year. And we anticipate it going up again. And they also had a 50% drop in absenteeism. If students are engaged, they come to work. Their work is their pathway, their story. They're telling their story, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the conditions for students to see the value in their own strengths, their interests, and what their passions are for the world of work.
Well, that's great. And I'm going to open it up to the audience, but I want to say over more than 20 years of covering education, I've heard enthusiasm for lots of different kinds of learning. You can call it competency-based, mastery-based, blended learning, future of learning. But all of these things go on and on. We're writing about all of them. And all three of you are incredibly enthusiastic about personalized learning and its power. I want to open it up to the audience and encourage you to be skeptical as well. Because we have, on this panel, we're all preaching to the converted, at least for the three of them here. They think this is a terrific new way of learning and have told you why. But maybe there's others who've had experiences that haven't been as robust and encouraging, or maybe there are some questions or skepticism. So there's going to be a mic, and I welcome hearing some of those.
Hi, my name's James. I'm just curious about the mandatory attendance that schooling requires. If this is successful, your program, it will be unnecessary, won't it? Because some children will escalate, some children won't have to do the mandatory attendance because they will escalate out of the program beforehand. Others will obviously take longer.
Yeah, one question, and honestly, I don't know what it looks like, but we frame it of anytime, anywhere. And a good example, if there's one student, he's reading 3 grade levels above, why should he enter kindergarten and be learning phonics? He's going to be bored out of his mind, most likely drop out and be frustrated around that. And so thinking through models of, we call it learner demonstrated, if you demonstrate the mastery, how do you sort of progress? Does your K-12 education have to be 12 years? Also the career technical stuff and getting out there in the real world and community-based projects is key. And so how does school become a hub that's much more porous than the keeper of all knowledge and all learning? Because there's so many awesome things out there that can be part of it. So I agree, we don't know what that looks like. That's part of the exploration part of all of this, but this sense of if you really are child-centered instead of system-centered, do what's best for the kid. I mean, the conversation with the teachers, with our coaches is just that simple. Is what the kid is doing right now, is that the best for him or her?
Right.
That's simple.
Yeah, I'd just jump in to the other side of the United States. I'd challenge that thinking just a little bit. Because students are drivers of their own learning and they may learn at different rates, that's the point we're talking about, that doesn't necessarily mean that they exit school sooner. The way I have conversations with teachers and parents and students about is if a student is accelerating very briskly, faster than others, then we go deeper. We provide them other opportunities, connect them to world problems, expand their problems, expand the students that they interact with. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the rate with which they finish school, but the depth and breadth of their work.
Hi, this question is for Ms. Thomas. I was just curious if all students really like the Summit program, or if there's students have qualms about it and what those are. And even if certain types of students, maybe a category of students aren't really thriving under the program.
I would say that majority of our students like Summit. Again, I haven't taken a formal survey or anything. But I haven't heard anything negative from our students. I would say, and I can speak specifically for my classroom, I have a high population of ELL students. I have a high population of SPED students. They all engage in grade level work. What that looks like might be different, specifically speaking in the time span, specifically speaking in the materials that they engage with, but there are a range of resources on there where students are picking which ones work best for them, and I think that's what they like about it. And then for certain students, when I speak of facilitation specifically for my unfinished learners, they do need that extra support, and I think sometimes that may be frustrating for them, so we are still trying to find ways to mitigate that for them. But I think the biggest issue that my students have is, my work, I submitted it 2 minutes ago and you didn't check it yet.
Working.
Instant gratification. I think there's another question.
Hi, my name is Jenny Bamboo. I'm with EdSurge. We've done a lot of coverage on personalized learning and looking at how that's working in different districts. I recently did a story looking at Charleston County, and they had a personalized learning thing that they did for quite a few years, and the results academically were challenged. And so it wasn't from that case specifically. I was wondering, for you guys, it seems like it's working well in your districts. Where does it work well? Where does it not work well? What are the where does personalized learning go right? Where does it go wrong?
I can jump in real quick. I'm mindful of the time. I think first of all, I think all of us have only been doing this about 4 years or so, so I think that's for the record. But where it works well, I think, is student engagement. It's getting a higher level of ownerships for students. And when students, as I mentioned earlier, come to school more often, interact with kids in different ways, and interact with their teacher in a different way, it's going to change the paradigm for their interest in their learning pathway. So that's what I would say. In our district, we have seen academic impacts, but again, it's only been 4 years, so time will tell.
It's going to be a work in progress, and we're going to be watching what happens in Chicago very closely as well. Okay, well, thank you very much to this great panel. A lot more we could talk about. We're out of time. Thanks.